you doing, everyone? Whoever's watching this, welcome. Whew. Welcome to this video. I feel this is going to be a very empowering video, not only for me, but for anyone who can connect to what I'm saying. It's quite an important moment of time to say this and to put this information out there for whoever can attract themselves to this message. Welcome. For a start, welcome to be here, listening to my voice. In this video, we're going to talk about something deep and something that means a lot to me. We're going to be talking specifically about tobacco, but let's also wrap into a mixture of substances. We can talk about alcohol, we can talk about tobacco, we can talk about caffeine, we can talk about chocolate to an extent, we can talk about sugar, because all of these foods are all linked together, or they all could be linked together, depending for some people. I'll tell a little story, a little story. So, for those who don't know me, I am a traveler. I have been traveling for 5 years. And during these 5 years, I have been lucky enough to travel across some part of the world with my bicycle. I travel with my bicycle. And I have encountered many different experiences, constantly moving, constantly adapting, constantly, in new environments. And I can kind of see what attachments actually carry with me in these new unknown places. Because when you're in a new environment, when you're in a completely new environment, every day traveling, you can kind of see what you're leaving behind, maybe in your old lifestyle or your old environment. And you can kind of see also what you're bringing forward and what's attaching to you. And for me, it's quite interesting to see how certain things stay attached to me. And one thing that has been attached to me for quite a long time is nicotine addiction or smoking addiction. That's never left. Even when I'm traveling or cycling, don't get me wrong. During the 5 years of me traveling in my life, there's been years where I haven't smoked. And then I get to see how it all happens again, how I start, what triggers the smoking, what gets me into the routine of starting to smoke again. And this is very interesting because you can kind of identify, okay, this broke it off and this made me start again. And everyone's different. And it's quite fascinating. And what I want to dive into, which will help a lot of people stop smoking, is purpose. And this is quite easy for me to say, but I hope I can wrap everything together, because it's not just one aspect, because one aspect may be left in your life that is going to trigger you to start smoking again. So let's talk about everything and let's try and get to the bottom of this together. So for me as a person, I got to realize how to stop smoking and how to start smoking and how I started smoking. How I stopped smoking truly came down to purpose and elimination. Eliminating everything out of my life that was keeping me smoking. And for me, this was caffeine and tea. So tea and caffeine were the first things that I welcomed back into my life before starting smoking. So I welcomed tea back into my life when I was happy waking up without caffeine. And for me, I'll dive a little bit deeper into this, is with tea and coffee, I found that when I drank tea and coffee, and this is when I stopped smoking and stopped drinking tea and coffee, and I identified, for me to stop smoking, I needed to stop drinking tea and coffee. Because when I drank tea and coffee, it would stimulate me, it would make me feel good. And when I would come down from this tea and coffee, I don't know, maybe it's a program that I programmed in myself a long time ago. But when I'm coming down, my brain thinks, okay, what's the next thing that can lift me back up again? And cigarettes was the case. And this didn't happen just straight away. I didn't, when I went and cycled around Europe for 6 months, and I came back because I needed to earn some money, and I came back and started working. And slowly, after a period of 4 or 5 months, getting into the routine of working, getting into the routine of a normal life, I started to, I remember the date exactly. I got up in the morning and I went cycling, and I didn't get much sleep the night before, and I decided to have a tea, just a tea, it's just a tea, just let's have a tea. I had that tea. The next day I decided to have another tea. And then the next day I decided to have a coffee. And slowly I started to drink coffee. Slowly my body started to get used to drinking coffee. Slowly, and then all of a sudden, I remember it quite clearly. One day I went and my friend wanted to smoke a little bit of hash, like a little bit of hash. And I said, yeah, I'll go get some tobacco so we can smoke it. And you'd be surprised, but I know that day was the day that I welcomed tobacco back into my life. And I link it to tea and coffee because subconsciously I wanted something more stimulative. Because when this is very important to understand, at least for me, everyone's different. I respect everyone's different levels. But for me, because I was inviting tea and coffee back into my life, and I was getting used to being stimulated, non-stimulated, my body started to open itself back up to stimulants, and from drinking tea and coffee, slowly, it wasn't new for my body to think, okay, like let's welcome back nicotine. There's something that's linked there, that when you let yourself down, and I'm not saying tea and coffee lowers your vulnerability to drugs or anything. I'm not saying that, but what it definitely does is that it definitely stimulates you, and then you come down from it. And when you're coming down, I feel like you are definitely more vulnerable than if you were staying on a stable line, or like when you're not drinking tea and coffee and you're just eating twice a day and you've got stable dopamine, levels throughout the day. Then when something comes into your life, like, do you want to smoke hash? You could say, yeah, let's have a joint, for example. And then, you would smoke a joint, and then the next day, maybe you would just go back into your normal routine. But this is the thing for me, is that, after smoking that day, the next day, I said, okay, let's have a cigarette. Because I'm coming down from that joint now. That bit of hash brought me, like, smoking it feels great, and then coming down from that, then I'm coming down, and then I go, okay, let's have a cigarette to lift me back up. And it's all linked for me, because the tea and coffee is the start of the little hump. And then maybe something adds onto the hump, like a joint or one-time smoking with tobacco. And then the hump gets larger. You're now more stimulated, and then there is more of a drop-off. And then when that drop-off comes, that's when I start to get into this wave, this loop of having a cigarette, having a coffee, because you go up, and then you come down, you have another cigarette, another coffee. And it all has to start somewhere. And for me, it all started just when I was in a healthy routine. I just didn't get enough sleep the night before, and I decided to have a tea. It started from that day, because that day, I remember it quite clearly, is the day that I welcomed tea and stimulants back into my life. And now we could say food is stimulants. Food is stimulants, of course. But there's something definitely powerful, and just like caffeine and sugar, and there are many stimulants, you know. But let's talk more specifically about smoking here, and we can get into the other stimulants maybe a little bit later. But definitely regarding smoking, it all starts in, you know, everyone's different, but it all started with me from welcoming tea and coffee back into my life, because my body started to get used to these ups and downs. And because it's already used to it, it can easily add more ups and downs, because we're creatures of pleasure, you know, comfort, pleasure. So if there's more of an up, I'll take it. I'll go up. But there's a consequence of not necessarily coming down, but the consequence of setting your life in this kind of routine where you're going up on stimulants in the morning, having coffee or cigarettes, or waking up, having a coffee and a cigarette. You're going to come up, because that's the thing that you need to feel when you wake up. You need to have that up, because otherwise you're going to be stuck down on a lower level. And for me, I literally feel that from that day when I first had the tea, is I actually was on a lower level. I woke up feeling low. I didn't get enough sleep before. And instead of me just, doing it tough and saying, okay, let's get through this, you know, let's go cycling, and eventually you'll wake up and get back to that level and come back to your normal level. But because I didn't do that, and I decided to bring myself back to my normal happiness state using tea and coffee, what started to happen was I started to form that gap, because I took the tea, and then the next day I woke up feeling here again, even though I got enough sleep, because I'm used to, my brain now knows that it has that stimulant feeling good gap, that I don't need to do the work to get to here. I can do here, and then I can fill it with other things like tea and coffee, you know. And there's something about this, and it's super interesting for me, and everyone's different. I have this connection with myself that I can identify this, but maybe some people don't, and which is perfectly fine, because maybe you don't need to identify this. This is just me. And this has a big part of, if you were, like, this video is just talking about smoking, and it goes into, many different fields, but or aspects, which you can go back into. But if you're regarding and talking about this, about smoking, this is an idea for everything, because you're probably just thinking, okay, I want to give up smoking, but you're still heavily drinking tea, chocolate, sugar, lots of processed foods, and all these foods and all this sugar and all this caffeine and tea, caffeine, what it's doing is it's giving you this, like when you're feeling empty, and then you might say, okay, I'm not going to smoke, but I'm going to go have a tea or a coffee, and I'm going to go eat some bread, or I'm going to eat some like sandwich or something. 95%, 99, I'm not sure, forget the statistics, but when you eat that, and that's going to make you feel good, and you're going to think, okay, I'm not going to smoke, but I'm going to do this. Highly likely, when you finish eating your food, tea, coffee, whatever it is, you're definitely going to crave cigarette afterwards, because you're going to realize you're going to have that high stimulative food. It's going to raise you, and you're not going to feel satisfied because it's not raising you enough. And then after your meal, you have a cigarette, and that's going to bring you up to your optimum, to your most satisfying level. And without this cigarette, you're going to feel not accomplished, not fulfilled. So what's the key to this? Is get rid of everything. Eliminate everything. And get yourself back to a level of where you should be. A level of groundingness. No stimulation. No stimulation. You know, if you have one stimulative thing, you're going to want everything. And this is me. This is my personality. Not everyone's like this if you have control, but I'm talking about effectiveness and potentially getting to the bottom of it forever. Because people think, okay, I can just stop smoking, but I can drink tea and coffee. I can, still eat, not look after my diet. And you can do that. and do it, because the willpower is stronger than everything. I'm just talking about steps that you can, strategy, the whole idea behind it, what got you started in the first place. This is me. I'm only talking about for me. Everyone's different. So don't take my advice. Just take an idea of what has helped me. Is identify that you need to get rid of everything. You can't have the tea and coffee. The tea and coffee will, well, for me, I'm just talking about myself. If I have tea and coffee, forget it. I'll want to smoke, because it's the whole package of the stimulant. Even if I have a tea or coffee, I won't feel satisfied until I have a cigarette. And this doesn't happen straight away, but it happens over a period of time. For me, it was 6 months that I got myself to the position where I started to drink tea, coffee, I had a cigarette, and then all of a sudden it's all here. And if you're all here, if you're watching this and this is where you are, you're drinking coffee, you're smoking, you're, not looking after your diet, you're already here. Welcome. Welcome, you're here. Take it back to where you first started. Take it back. For me, it was drinking tea or coffee, remove it. For me, it was, just drinking tea and coffee, remove it. And then you come back to just smoking. You first stop drinking tea and coffee and just continue smoking, but take the tea and coffee out of your life. And take the shite diet out of your life as well. And just be left with a good diet. Start introducing some exercise. So you have a good diet, you don't have stimulants, you don't have all this chocolate and all this high sugary stimulant processed foods. You have a good diet, you have some healthy exercise, routine, friends, whatever you do, whatever you like to do it. Still smoke. Let smoking be the last thing that you get out of your life. Still smoke. Do everything that you're doing. And eventually, it just won't make sense. It won't make sense that you're doing great, you're eating well, you're having a healthy lifestyle, and this all takes slow. If you don't, we can build on this. We can all, from a start, stop eating. Stop eating. You can say, okay, I'm going to stop eating. And then I'm going to think, okay, well, if I'm not eating, what am I eating then? And then you can start working on a healthy diet. Everyone can do this from day one. If you're in a position where you don't have a healthy lifestyle, you don't have things to do at the moment, we can work on this. It's simple. Just go for a walk, and it is quite simple. It's just go for a walk or sit on a mat and do some meditation. We can get into that as well. It's not strict. It's all free-flowing love, Slowly, but you can stop drinking tea and coffee. You can just keep doing everything you're doing. No, I'm sorry, or keep doing everything you're doing. But more so, the main thing is cut everything out and keep smoking. You'll get to a point where you'll realize, okay, the only thing that I'm still doing is smoking. And I realized that I'm highly addicted to still smoking. And now what you've done is you've started to eliminate all of the mixture of things, because imagine this mixture of things that are just controlling you, that have all this control over what you do. You say, I feel like I have no control. I feel like I just binge out. I just go to the shops and buy all this junk food and then eat it all, and I feel really bad. Or I feel like I've tried to stop smoking, but I just don't have any control. There's something just... It's because there's so many things flowing inside you that are all linked together. If you just try and take one out, like smoking, all of the other things are going to mix together. And like eating, binge eating, overeating, stimulative addictions, tea, coffee addictions, chocolate addictions. If you just take one out, smoking, it's going to say, fuck it. It's going to say, I don't care, and then all of a sudden you're just going to start smoking again. Because you haven't identified that it's a whole mixture of things that are controlling you. It's not just smoking, it's all types of addictive addictions, phone addictions. All these different things are all flowing inside of you that all have complete, utter control over you. And the best thing to do is start to remove them. Start to remove yourself away from, at least processed foods. Any processed foods, get it away. tea, coffee, have a break, go on a detox, you know, and then leave yourself just with tobacco. And when you get to a point, after a few days of detoxifying from tea, coffee, sugary foods, you will start to realize that you're starting to actually balance your levels of mind control. You're actually more in control of your mind, and you're still smoking. This is perfectly fine. What you're moving towards is the consciousness to identify how many different things in your life are actually stimulating you and affecting your quality decision making. And smoking, quite interesting, is one of the least. Smoking is one of the least things that actually affects you mentally. Like, it's very interesting. Tea and coffee has much more of a powerful effect over my mood and what I do and how it encourages me to do other things than smoking. Smoking just adds as a relaxation. It's super interesting. And for smoking to be one of the last things you remove will be the best thing, because it's going to give you the power mentally to realize, okay, this is what I've done, and now this is what I'm doing. And giving up smoking to be your last and final thing is going to be incredibly powerful, because you can then prevent yourself from starting again by realizing all these little things that have made you to start smoking. And if smoking's the last thing you give up, you have to give up all the other things in the middle to fully give up and to fully heal yourself and to not start again. And yeah, I hope this video made a bit of sense, a bit of clarity, and I look forward to sharing more information, especially about this topic, maybe in other videos related. And yeah, guys, and this is just me, but I hope you could kind of feel from my perspective, and yeah, I appreciate if you felt something about this video. And have a great day.